We're hearing it. This is where we're headed. If you believe in reasonable exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother, health of the mother, you hear where we're going. This is where we're headed. The life of the mother is viewed as nothing more than a vessel for having a child, whether that was through rape or some other horrendous event. Is that the Idaho you want your daughters to grow up in, your granddaughters? Where the rapist's rights are held sacrosanct until you can get through a trial?
Mr. President, I am going to ask for a point of order because there's very clearly in the language being used motives being impugned as to what we think about rapists and what we think about mothers.
Senator Herndon, I'm going to allow Senator Rudke to continue. And Senator 29, you've heard the concerns from the other good senator.
Mr. President.
Senator Winder, for what purpose do you rise?
As a point of parliamentary procedure.
State your point.
I believe that the senator is not debating this bill. He's talking about some future that is not part of this bill. It's one perspective on the floor, and I think that it goes too far.
Senator Rudke, continue with all of this input. But I believe that the Senator for 29 was responding to other debate that we had obviously set through unopposing, and this is a natural response. If he stays there too long, we'll bring him back. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Those are my concerns. This is where we're headed. We've seen it. And we should take into consideration when we're voting on this bill and other abortion legislation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Wintrow.
Thank you, Mr. President, to debate for the second time.
Does anyone wish to debate the bill for the first time?
Mr. President.
Senator Schroeder, for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really appreciate the work that's been done on this bill, and it specifically addresses a couple of concerns, particularly the concern about needing to obtain a police report in order to verify the circumstances for which a person seeks to terminate a pregnancy in the case of rape or incest. As a prosecutor, that is a concern. Releasing a report with names that can interfere with an investigation or the successful prosecution of the case. So providing those tools and those mechanisms that are necessary I believe is extremely helpful. I also like changing it from an affirmative defense because as we've heard in debate here, while hospitals may have attorneys on their staff, they don't necessarily have criminal defense attorneys. When you're charged with a crime, that's a whole different ball of wax. And so appearing in criminal court is not something that most hospital attorneys, I think, are set up to do. And so I think this addresses a very real concern. We've seen the results of it. And I urge your support for this legislation. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Senator Anthony.
I move the previous question.
This is a non-debatable motion to limit debate. Requires 2/3 of the members voting for passage.